Today for on BCA, I want to welcome two special guests, Chad Heflin. Chad, I said your last name right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So Chad and I have had we've been, I don't know, I call them friends, but we're probably more acquaintances. He had me on a podcast years ago, and we travel in the same circles with our show sponsor. One of our sponsors is Hollerback Game Calls, and so he and I have a connection there. But Chad this year went on a safari in South Africa, and with Basso. Why am I having a hard time saying your last name, Boris? Say
It's
it for
Basso
us.
Safaris. Basso Safaris.
Basso Safaris. And so Boris Basso is joining us from South Africa. And so we're really thrilled to have both of you guys on today. And we're going to talk safari and what's it take to pull off a safari for those that might be interested in an African hunt and what is involved with that. But before we get started with that, I'd love to hear a little bit of the story of how you got started, Boris, and what what life looks like for you in South Africa, I guess.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for being on the show. Chad, once again, thanks for putting it together as well. Mike, my parents immigrated from Italy in 1967 to South Africa, and my father was, enjoyed his hunting. He enjoyed his wing shooting in Italy. I think after World War II, there wasn't much happening. Europe was in a full-blown recession. So, and South Africa was Botswana, Zimbabwe, which was then Rhodesia, was really the land of the milk and honey. So a lot of Europeans came out to South Africa, and naturally South Africa had a lot to offer in the hunting industry in those days. It's not like it is today. It was slightly different in those days. And, my dad got hooked on the abundance of wild birds that we have. Let's call it game birds. So from a young age, I was very fortunate and blessed to have accompanied my dad on many safaris. That's big game hunting, hunting buffalo, elephant, lions and all that. But my passion with that was really the wing shooting. The wing shooting got me at a young age, from about 4 or 5, walking with my dad and we were hunting over GSPs, German short-haired pointers. So that's where it really started, the love for hunting, and not just hunting, but it was a love for being outdoors. The love being in nature. We didn't have the fancy lodges like we have today. You really went to a farmer who was probably a cattle farmer or an agricultural farmer, and he would, you had a permit and you'd shoot a few birds on a permit, and that's how it started. And only later on, at about the age of 7, did I hunt my first impala. And my dad was hardcore. There was you shot for the pot. You didn't shoot to waste ammunition and shoot birds just for the fun of it. So that's where I really started understanding the ethics of what hunting is about. I think we forget what hunting is all about as well. It's not just the trophy. It's the meat. It's the adventure. And you won't believe, Mike, but I had some guys that came in from Chicago, a father and son. They hunted from buffalo to other plains game animals. But you know what I loved about it was the passion between the two of them, the relationship that these guys had out there. It wasn't a young son; he's 26 years old. But it reminded me of my days with my dad. My dad passed away, unfortunately, many, many years ago, and it's sad because he can't share what I'm enjoying now. But I think that's what it's about. It's about being out there. Chad coming with his wife. I treasure those. For me, I'm a family man. I said to Chad, I welcome kids to come along because I think it's very important that we share what we have today. Because if we don't share it with our kids, what are they going to have one day? So that's where I fell in love. I fell in love naturally with my dad, going with my dad. I wasn't the kind of kid that would get on a bicycle and go play with his mates out there. I was very lucky. I'd go out with my dad on a Friday, come back on a Sunday. If we hunted in Zimbabwe, which was in Rhodesia, I was away for 2 weeks. Even when they had their bush war, I was about 10, 11 years old when I went on my first hunting trip. So with that, naturally, I had school still to attend to, and we got to the age of 17 or 18 at school. And from there, we had compulsory military. We had to do military in South Africa. So either you went to university and then after university, you did your military. So I tried university, it didn't work out for me. My dad sent me straight away to the army, did my 2 years out of that, and then from there I needed to get a career going, and I got involved in the plastic manufacturing industry. My dad was also in the plastic manufacturing industry, and so I started building up my career. But going to that, I decided to become a professional hunter at the age of 31. I did a professional hunter's course. It's a 10-day course that you go and do, which is all about the law. The fortunate thing for me was I was well advanced already with my hunting that I've been done. I've been shooting a lot of animals. Like I said, very fortunate and blessed to have done that. So I got to know with my dad how to track and how to hunt, calibers. So that was a little bit easier for me. And as I went on, I did professional hunting for a couple of years, and then I took a break to focus on a business, which I started with a business partner, and then I got into it again. So as an outfitter, I'm relatively young in the industry as an outfitter. I'm going 5 years at it, but as a professional hunter, I've been doing it for 24, I think 25 years now.
Wow.
It really goes back, and I must say, I must thank my dad for it. Without my dad, I don't think I'll be able to do this. Getting to enjoy my farming, getting to enjoy guys like Chad and Morgan, not because on the show now, but I treasure that. I love taking people out hunting and showing them South Africa. It's a beautiful country, and if you have that passion, it's not a job for me, Mike. This is not a job. It's a passion. I'm very passionate about what I do. And hopefully it gets even better, the way I'll go forward and how I plan my hunts and how I plan my safaris with my clients, they come on board, and it's not clients anymore. We become friends at the end of the day. It's families. You become, you spend so much time in the bush that you get to know each other. I didn't know Chad. I spoke to Chad a couple of times on the phone, and that's it. But we really got to understand each other once he got to South Africa. And I think that's very important in our industry, that we show the guys who do come from the US an awesome time.
Yeah. And Boris, we really got to know each other when we had 7 Buffalo Bulls coming at us. Yeah, and we can get into that later. But that's when trust really became a big deal, Mike. And I think actually I fell in love with Boris that day.
And with David.
There's, just a couple thoughts quick is, Boris, I think it seems to me the guides that I have connected with over the years, they either have the it thing or the it factor, or they don't. And that what I have found to be that it factor is that they're people person. They're people. Like they do well interacting with people. And you and I just met just before this call, and there's already, I feel like it would be easy to get to know you, easy to connect with you. And so I think you have that people factor.
Yeah, Mike, and I'll touch on that real quick too, if you don't mind. Going into this hunt, this was Morgan's first international trip. I mean, she had gotten a passport just months before we left in June this year. And, so being nervous is a big part of, traveling internationally, especially when it's your first time. And just the amount of times Boris and I talked, I mean, he said a couple times, but Boris and I talked, I think, starting in October last year. And then probably at least once a month leading up to our hunt. And then when we got within a month, it was at least a week planning for the weather and planning for what to pack. So I'm not sure how other outfitters do this. This is obviously our first African hunt, but the communication that I had with Boris is what really made us comfortable, really Morgan comfortable with leaving our kids here in the U.S. and then traveling all that way to South Africa, a new country. And obviously the media and everything else blows things out of proportion. But I'm telling you, Mike, when we got there, it was a paradise. It was a home away from home. Boris picks you up at the airport. You get to ride through vast different just ecosystems through the country and see, the town there, the city there around Johannesburg, the mountains, the ag fields. It looks like here. It kind of reminded me of like South Texas, something like that. But what I'm trying to say is Boris does such a great job with planning, making you comfortable, and just kind of that connection
Yeah.
piece that some people just don't have.
Yeah. Boris, how do you do you treat every client that way? Like, are you that involved in communicating with every client?
With all of them, Mike, even my friends that are coming from Georgia, Dalton, Georgia, in September. It's elderly people, and they're going to do not much of a hunt. It's about 2 species they can hunt, but from there, I'm going to the Kruger National Park. So once a month, I've been connecting, what to take, malaria tablets, etc. So now that it's getting down to the wire, believe it or not, we're literally a month away from their trip. Just like Chad said, I chat to them. But I must just say to you, Mike, that we have some of the world's best, I believe, and not to blow our bugle in South Africa, but I think South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, we have some of the best outfitters in the world, I believe. What I did promise myself when I started this business, it is a business after all,
Mhm.
is I had a business and it became a very corporate business. But it started as a privately owned business, and it developed into this huge business, employing a lot of people, a lot of pressure. I'd been in the plastic industry for about 36 years. And you tend to lose something. And where you lose it, and only now I'm starting to realize it, was that it's just a numbers game. It's all
Mm.
about numbers, it's all about profits. It's about this, about that. And I promised myself with this business, I would not take it to that next level. I want to enjoy it. I want to be able to PH and take the guys out. I do have my kids involved in the professional hunting. They've just done their course. They are young, but I'm bringing them into the business because I want to keep it as a family business. And I
Yeah.
think that just sets me aside to the other outfits. It's not knocking them at all. Definitely not. I think, we're all chasing the dream of hunting buffalo, hunting elephant, and all that. All well said and done. Not every hunt needs to be an elephant.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I would like that one-time hunter that comes and visits me, that he has a memory, and he'll never forget his trip, even if he doesn't come back to South Africa again. But that memory, that reminder, when he looks at the photographs and says, gee whiz, Boris and I shared a moment, like Chad mentioned with the buffaloes. I think it's very important, and that's why I will never take this business to. And I said to Chad as well, I will never double book my lodge,
Yeah.
never. Whoever comes over there, the lodge is for them. It's a private function. If there's other hunters that will come in, I do have my 2 sons, and they will hunt on a different concession.
Mm.
But that's very important that I keep it very personalized and tailor-made for that client. Because if you don't do that, I think you lose control as an outfitter, and you
Yeah.
don't enjoy it anymore. It's a business thing, and I don't need to take it there.
Right.
I think
You've
that's
done that
what
already.
I say to you, Mike. I don't need to take it. I need to have 400 clients a year at my place. I don't think I'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So let's kind of walk through what the trip looked like. So Chad, how did you find Boris, and how did you make the decision? Hey, I want to do I think we're going to try and do an African hunt. And
Yeah.
let's kind of walk through, you know, what your perspective was and what Boris's perspective, and how that back and forth worked. So
Sure. Yeah. Our trip is probably going to be a little different than most folks that plan their trip. So Boris and Lazan, their son HJ actually came over a year ago, I guess now, Boris, and
That's right.
actually
Yes, yes.
lived with my stepbrother Nick, who farms, and he actually lived with our family for 4 or 5 months, and worked to get some, I guess, outside experience with the U.S. ag stuff. And so actually our relationship started there, and is why we
mm,
continued building more of a family type relationship going forward. But HJ came over. Morgan and I had actually been planning a safari hunt, because before we were even married, Mike, Morgan was a hunter, and kind of why it drew me into her. Right, she had pictures of big turkeys fanned out and deer and stuff, and I said, that's the woman for me. So but before we were even married, Morgan had a dream, and I did too, of going to South Africa to bow hunt and to actually shoot a kudu, which
mhm,
I think you've seen. She she shot an excellent trophy there with Boris. But we've been planning this, after the kids had gotten a little bit older. They're 5, 6, and 4 now, so at the age where they could stay with the grandparents and not be too much of a burden on them. But Boris and I had talked through HJ. HJ kind of got us in touch with Boris and last fall, and we started just planning this hunt. What does it look like? What does it financially look like? That's probably the biggest point that most people look at is this doable? And I've wanted to, as I've grown in my profession and obviously financial security throughout my career, then you start looking at adventure hunts away from just the farm and the whitetails and turkeys. So I've been lucky to go to Texas and hunt axis deer. I've been lucky to go to Canada and hunt black bears. But when you start looking at elk hunts, you start looking at mule deer hunts, you start looking at, a 3-day turkey hunt to try to kill something different than an Eastern gobbler. It starts getting really expensive. I mean, I think 3-day turkey hunts now are running anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 for 3 days and one turkey. Yeah. And I'm just like, I can't see myself spending that money. I'd love to continue to pour into our home economy and the hunting economy here in the U.S., but how can I justify spending $12,000 on an elk hunt for one animal? And, something that everybody wants to do. So when I looked at what Boris had and looked at his website, and I looked at, obviously we talked back and forth, this became doable. You can go, I think Boris has a great package right now. You can go to his place for 7 days, all inclusive for $4,200 and harvest 4 animals.
Wow.
And I mean, that's a blue wildebeest, that's a blessed buck, that's an impala, a warthog. So all the things that people kind of want to check off their African bucket list, maybe the first time they go. And like I said, it's all inclusive. So 7 days, that's you're going to eat the top notch food, drinks, whatever you want to have. And the hospitality is just second to none. So putting all that into the factor of can we do this? Morgan and I were like, this is something we've always wanted to do, and this is definitely doable financially. And then we had to obviously talk the grandparents into watching the kids for about 10 days. So yeah, and just planning. Boris is a great people person, which you can see, and we've spoke about. So he was able to talk us through and plan our hunt. Help us plan, hey, when you get to customs, this is what you're going to have. He gave us an invitation letter to present to them just in case. And then he was there with a smile, with the camera going when we walked through the doors, and we went and grabbed some coffee and then off we went. And it was just an incredible experience that I don't think a lot of people, maybe think is doable, and it is.
Yeah. Did you so I'm sure at least for me going to Senegal, there's shots. There's a list of yellow fever, typhoid. You're taking your malaria meds, that kind of stuff. And then the other question I think people have always is like getting your archery equipment or your firearms over there. Boris, do you walk folks through that, or is that on your side, Chad, now being in the kind of the U.S. rep?
Yeah, so just my experience, that was obviously a big question. When I had gone to India, we had to take malaria pills, but where Boris's farm is, we did not, and it was malaria free. I think he maybe touched on a little bit. If you get to maybe Kruger, Boris, you can touch on it. You may have to take malaria pills, but he walks you through that. I asked him. He told us what we needed. As far as the bow, Mike, it was pretty simple. I had traveled to Canada with it internationally, so it wasn't bad that trip. But we literally checked the bag just like it was any of our checked luggage. So that was easy for us. We were able to, take our broadheads, everything in the case with it locked. And it checked just like our luggage. I'm not sure how the rifle or a gun would go, but Boris, I'd let you touch on maybe some of the malaria stuff or shots that you may need, and then maybe walk them through the rifle, bringing that.
Well, I think, Chad, with that, it depends where we hunt. If we're hunting in the Limpopo area, certainly in my area, there's no malaria, there's no bilharzia and all that, so we're very fortunate with that. And if I'm going to go to other concessions, which are probably closer to the Kruger National Park, you'll need to take malaria jabs, or malaria tablet, which I will guide you through, and I'll also recommend what you need to take. I think that's very important, because the last thing you want is someone getting sick on our side. I think, Mike, when it comes to rifles, I must tell you, my traveling now to the US, I've been traveling there since 2018. I've seen quite a bit of your country. It's a beautiful country. I'm in love with the US, I must tell you, especially when I travel in the South. I haven't been up towards Virginia and those places, but, Georgia, I love. Tennessee, I love. The one question does come up the whole time is rifles. We want to bring our rifles. How do we go about it? So there is documents. I say if a hunter is traveling and he takes that flight Atlanta, Johannesburg, which is a long flight, it's a 15-hour flight. It's probably one of the, if I'm not mistaken, the second longest flight in the world. Then you must bring a rifle, because I always say bring the rifle that you are so comfortable with. I do have my rifles as well. So if the guy doesn't feel like going through customs with a rifle, I rent my rifles out. The guys can use my 375 or 308 or 8 mil or 30-06. We do have those calibers over here with good ammunition. Your Normas and all that. So with a bow, what I saw with Chad and I saw with the guys that were recently here, I actually feel that you travel easier with a bow.
Yep.
It's easier, but not everyone's a bow hunter. Guys want to come and do the rifle hunt. They enjoy the rifle hunt. Although I'm geared to do both, bow and rifle. But a rifle, if you're traveling to the UK, I'd be a little bit skeptical to travel, because there has been not stories, but scenarios where people have tampered with people's scopes, or they take those cases and they knock them down. I know that those cases are very hard, difficult to penetrate. But I think traveling to Europe, I'd say, rather leave your rifle behind than use one of my rifles. If you fly directly from the US to South Africa, I think then bring your rifle. It's easy to get it through customs. We organize all the paperwork. It's a SAPS 520. You just get a temporary import permit on your side, and it's done. And, ammunition, you can bring up to 60 rounds of ammunition per caliber. So I think it's easy. It's really easy to travel. I think if you're traveling into Zimbabwe, into Mozambique, it gets a little bit more tricky over there. But certainly to South Africa, I wouldn't really be too bothered if you're coming out of the US.
Wow. So, I think of if I'm going to spend the time flying and the money for my first African hunt, I think. As much as I love to bow hunt, I think I would go with a rifle, honestly, because I think my chances with a rifle are probably far better to harvest something than with a bow. I can't, I can't speak to it honestly because I haven't done it, but boy,
Mike, I think that's, Chad, I think that's where it changes a little bit, because even, Chad was doing bow hunting. I had some friends from Canada that came, from Alberta that came with the bow, and friends that came now as well with the bow. But it's not like in the US where you guys will sit in a blind and maybe you only get one buck coming in there. There's a variety. That's the beauty about what we're doing and what we have achieved, Mike. There's such a variety. You might not want to shoot a zebra, but the next month you got a zebra coming into your blind. You know what I mean? And you say, well, now I want to take it. I think that's. I think it's what's the right word? We don't know what's going to come in there. I can't tell impalas. I know they're going to come drink, but I don't know. But there you go, Chad. You can also chat about what you tend to see what comes in there. Buffalo, sable. There's a variety. So bow hunting is. I say if you can do both, maybe you want to do 2 days bow hunting and then 1 day rifle hunting. I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah, and I think, Mike, again, that was actually one of the big questions that was asked to us by folks that, hey, I know you're taking your bow, but would you pick up the rifle if you don't have an opportunity towards the end of the trip? I was like, well, absolutely. I'm going to go to Africa and bring something home. But, that's our mindset, I think, because it's so different here in the U.S. with, especially how target bucks and stuff have come along, and then just how hyped I think social media has made hunting here for the turkeys and elk and everything else. But it is such a rich game environment. And we actually hunt it mostly in the middle of the day. So we'd get up and have a great cup of coffee and breakfast and, shoot our bows and have some competitions there in the yard. I think Boris actually beat us in the 50-yard competition with his bow. I don't even know how he saw through the
I was lucky. It's just the wind.
But, and you get to have fun in the mornings, and then by 10 o'clock, we're in the blind and we're ready, because those animals are so different. They're going to come into water at that point in time. And that's what we hunted a lot, over the water holes. And Mike, I mean, we saw, I don't know, I would say probably 100 warthogs over the week. We saw kudus. Morgan got a shot at her kudu, I think, on day 3. We saw water buck. We saw impalas. I mean, you're going to see everything, and the opportunity is going to present itself. Morgan and I, we filmed each other. So really, as one hunter, we kind of only hunt it half the time each, because we hunt it together, which that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to hunt with Boris and Dimitri and hunt together, so I could film her film me. And we had a wonderful time. I mean, the opportunities were there every day. And again, if you get to the end of the trip and maybe for some reason haven't pulled back on something, you can use Boris's guns, which he has there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That, I just always think, I'm thinking, the way we sit in a tree stand for hours and hours, and you might get an opportunity a week, as opposed to there where, you are seeing, it sounds like you're seeing many species. So,
yeah. And Mike, there might be times where nothing comes in, it is what it is. The animals are not tied up. It's not a zoo. So it is. I think Chad and I sat that one day. I think we sat 7 hours, Chad. That one day we had animals coming in, not what we wanted to hunt, for the first 2 hours, and then it just went quiet. And it was the weather that was changing without us realizing, because we're sitting in a blind that's almost resembling an anthill, and we could not see what the weather was doing outside. But that's what it is. And unfortunately, Mike, I'm very honest with you. I'm not a person that can sit still for 2 minutes. So I battle to sit for 7 hours. I think Chad shares the same situation. I sit with Morgan and Dimitri a little bit more patient than what we were. But there's a lot of things that what I did like about it was, even if you weren't, let's say, wanting to hunt a kudu, just to take photos of that kudu, so close, sitting at 15, 20 yards, and you see the beauty of this spiral horn. It's amazing compared to when you're walking. When you're walking, it's basically you're ambushing the animal, you take a shot, it's happening very quick. We're bow hunting, like that kudu that Morgan shot. Chad, you must correct me. I think it was about 45 minutes. We had seen him 45 minutes before he even came into shooting range. So it's patience. And I think what happens then, you need to be mentally strong and prepared for that shot when it does present itself. Because the adrenaline does kick in, and I think that's the beauty about hunting, isn't it?
Well, and Mike, that's the thing I also want to touch on is it's not. I don't want people to think, and I had this mindset a little bit by watching some of the videos, because when you watch YouTube, it's shot after shot after shot after shot. They're not really show the in between stuff a whole lot, but I don't want people to think it's like shooting fish in a barrel, because it's not. The first day we watched the kudus for 45 minutes. The kudu got to like 15 yards. Morgan was waiting for a shot to present. Wind shifted, gone. I mean, the whole hour we watched them, they're gone. After that, and so I don't want folks to think it's like shooting fish in a barrel, because it's not. Because these are wild animals. They are very, very cautious. I mean, compared to a lion, us humans aren't very much of a predator towards them, and they have to deal with those types of predators, which we don't have here in the U.S. So they're very wary. You have to be very patient, but the opportunities will present themselves if you are willing to sit there, or, even do walk and stalk. I think, Boris, you have a great story with the walk and stalk with the sable, but and then talking about the adrenaline, Mike. I mean, we got to the point where, Morgan, we had practiced and practiced and practiced and got her draw weight up to like 55 pounds, I think, before we went. And we were sitting there, Boris and I were in the floor of the hide, and Morgan, Dimitri's like, all right, draw back. She had her opportunity. She was so shook by this 600 and some pound animal 12 steps from her. She couldn't draw her bow back. And I was like, oh boy, I can't help her. I'm sitting down. I was trying to get Dimitri to help her. And then I saw her grab her cross, and she said, I just started praying. And the next thing, she just yanked it back and finally got the bow back. And she made a incredible shot. we had practiced for months for that one opportunity. And I think the kudu ran 60 yards, Boris, and fell over.
Yes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
just stuff like that is incredible. Those moments.
Mm.
I think the training, Mike, the training goes behind it. That's where I guide first time hunters like Chad what to prepare for, especially if you're a rifle hunter and you want to bring your own caliber, is to really shoot off sticks. We shoot a lot off sticks over here. So when we're walking, and my farm, typically my farm is very thorny bush. There's a lot of bush over there. So you might get a shot at 30 meters, so you've got the animal, you've completely got him off guard, and now you must put the sticks. And I think that's where, it's fine to shoot off a bench, you're shooting off a bench at the dead rest, but you've got to practice those sticks. So I always, coach and practice. I think it's very important to practice and to understand the vitals of our animals, because our animals, compared to you guys like to shoot a little bit behind the shoulder. We that's for us. It's if you go behind the shoulder, it's a little bit devastating. You're going to have a wounded animal on your hands, especially when it comes to zebra, wildebeest. The animals are very tough. So you've got to go on the shoulder, and you need to understand those vitals. And not to go too high on the animals. And that's what we do. We did a lot of that, Chad, and with all the guys that come there, I spend a lot of time on shot placements. Because you might just want to shoot the kudu or a wildebeest, and that zebra comes in. Then you must know where your shot placement is, because there's not much time to prepare for that in a hide or where you're walking and stalking.
Yeah, and I think, Boris, you did a great job of that. Obviously when you travel with your bow or even your gun, the one thing you want to make sure is your sights are still together, right? Not broken and also still on. So when we got there, that we had arrived in Johannesburg that morning and then drove to Boris's lodge, and got settled in. We started shooting. They had a blessed buck, I think it was, 3D target, and we got the book out. We started looking at vitals. We started looking at shot placements. Boris walked us around different angles to look at how the angle of the shot was going to affect where we're going to aim. That was very important, and Boris and Dimitri took so much time with us, which I really think helped us be very successful with the bow. So that was a very important part of it, and we did it every day. Every morning we were shooting, every afternoon we were shooting, and we were having fun with it. Like I said, we did the competition and stuff, so it was a good time. And they take so much time to check off the details that you need to be looking at.
Chad, also, if you remember, we also practiced a lot where you hold the bow and you move and you hold and you release. And I must tell you, the gentleman that was with us now, he's on his wish list was a big buffalo bull, hard boss, Duggar boy, and his son was going to harvest plains game. So you can imagine the guy shooting an 80-pound bow. He's 66 years old. So when we were practicing, I made him hold that bow. And I'm glad I did that, because when that buffalo came in, and we said, right, now you must take the shot, the buffalo moved, and he picked up that we were in something disturbed him and in the hide, and he had to hold. He held it because we took a video of it. He held that bow, 80-pound, for 58 seconds. Now that's a long time. It does sound like it's a long time especially for an elderly person that maybe not gym fit or muscle fit. Now to hold an 80-pound, and he did a wonderful job. The minute that bull relaxed, he released, and what a perfect shot. I think if you don't practice those things, you're going to pull a bad shot, because your muscle's not holding the whole time. You pick up a bow, you're shooting. Same as a rifle, shooting off sticks. If you don't practice that, then you're in for days of tracking, which we don't want, because, then it's wasted time, where you could be enjoying harvesting another animal. I think that's the main thing, that we shoot to kill, and it's very important that we practice all these scenarios.
Yeah. Is a PH required? A professional hunter required in South Africa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, our law states that any foreign hunter needs to be accompanied by a professional hunter.
Yeah. And do you have? I don't know if you're familiar with Sue Tidwell's book, "Cries of the Savannah."
Yep.
She talked about environmental, like the we would call them like game wardens here, but they had game folks that went along with them to monitor. Do you have that kind of thing as well?
So, for example, I had a client coming out of Georgia last year who, 2 years ago, sorry, and he came to do a rhino hunt. So with that, I was not allowed to do the hunt or conduct the hunt until the chap from Nature Conservation arrived, which is your game and fish and game warden, you know. And that was strictly monitored purely because of the volatility of a rhino horn, you know, that it's it's not that endangered in South Africa, you know. It's unfortunately the non-hunting fraternities are putting us under pressure with that, and naturally the poaching. But there's a good instant. A lion hunt, you don't need nature conservation. It's really only the rhino hunt that you need a game warden or nature conservation to accompany you.
Oh, interesting. So you've talked about your farm that you hunted the farm, and then there's also concessions, right? Is that what you were?
Yes.
Do you lease those concessions, or are they just public lands, or how does that work?
Mike, so that's all privately owned farms. They range from anything from about 2,500 hectares minimum to right up to 15,000 acres.
Wow.
It's called acres. Wow. So I have in the region of about 50,000 hectares of concession on privately owned farms, which is about 110,000 acres. That's in the Limpopo area. I've just secured a concession in the Kalahari, in the Kimberley area, another 20,000 hectares, which is roughly about 42,000 acres over there. And the reason for that, Mike, is you might get a chap, you know, like some good friends of mine who've been hunting with me for a long time that want a different they want to hunt in a different part of South Africa. You know, because we're fortunate, you know, and I need to step back a little bit, Mike, so you guys can also understand that what we've done successfully in South Africa. 1972, roughly 1972, 73, they started with game ranching, where guys realized that if they did not camp off farms, there would not be wild game anymore. It was being poached. Hunters were shooting them out completely. It was really anarchy over there. And the guys decided to start fencing in. And in those days, and I can take, because I remember, you could really only shoot kudu, impala, warthog, blesbuck, some wildebeest, zebra. But you wouldn't go to a farm there and shoot sable. There wasn't. So I can't remember sables being on farms. I can't remember buffalo being around. Today, we have disease-free buffalo. Now, remember, we have diseased buffalo that come out of the Kruger, and there's a certain cut line that cannot come under, you know, because of the cattle, you know, foot and mouth diseases. So buffalo that I farm with are all disease-free buffalo. In order for me to, let's say I want to sell some buffalo, I need to get a vet to come in there. He's got to dart him. He's got to take blood. He's got all of those things. So, but today we have buffalo on our farms. We're privileged. And things that the farmers started in those days are starting to look after game, sable. The roan numbers are so high. I don't have the exact numbers, but, you know, we talk about rhino. They need to open it up, Mike. There's too much politics. Our governments are involved in this rhino thing. Why? If my neighbors have rhinos, if I'm a rhino farmer, why would I let you shoot all these rhinos out? Doesn't make sense. Because you only harvest a bull that he's got to go down. He's come to the end of his term. He can't breed anymore. So that money that you generate from that rhino goes back into your rhino population. That it is what it is, and that's where the non-hunters want you to believe that it isn't like it. It is like that. It's a business. We run businesses over here. Farming is a business. Like you guys have farmers who are agricultural. It's a business. So it's very important. And Chad and I spoke lengthily about it, about genetics. You know, look what we've achieved today. You know, you can't, if you go to Zimbabwe and you hunt on those concessions, you'll be very lucky to hunt a 40+ buffalo bull. In South Africa, they're really talking about 55, 56, 60-inch buffalo bulls. Fantastic, beautiful. So yes, it might be unaffordable now to hunt one of those bulls. But in 10 years' time, you're going to be hunting buffalo bulls that there were in early 19th century. You know what I mean? And that's what they've done now. That's what we successfully do. And that's going back to what the rhino farms have done, exactly what the lion farmers have done. You know, there's more rhino, more lion in private hands than what there is in state hands. We are faced with another challenge, Mike, and I'm going to answer your question going back to concessions. The lion hunting in South Africa, the farmers are now, they've had it. Our government is putting back on all permits for lion farming. The US, as you know, we are not allowed to export. A hunter from America cannot export his trophy to the US, but it can go to Canada, for example. Now, that's detrimental to our country. That has been really detrimental in the sense that the farmers, what do they do now? Do they carry on farming with lions? Must they destroy the lions? Because I need to reverse it. Would you farm with lions if there's no revenue? Would you just let them roam on your farm, kill all your wildebeest, kill all your kudus? No, you're not going to do it. No one's going to do it. So now our government has turned this around even further by saying, well, they want to close all lion farming in South Africa. Detrimental. You know, there's roughly about 20,000 lions in privately owned hands. If you take that all away, in our nature reserves, I think they're up to 4,000 lions. There's not going to be lions in South Africa anymore. Gone. Yeah. And I think that's what the non-hunters are seeing. They're not seeing the bigger picture. Farming, like I said, to ease a business. Why would we want to do lions if there's no value to it? If there's no value to a lion, there's no need to put it. Same as a rhino. My personal opinion, open up this nonsense, stop the red tape. Why go burn in Kenya and all those places? Why go burn all those ivory? Why burn it? Why did you flood the market? Push it out there for $1 an ounce. Push it out there. But they're not doing it. And there's a reason for that, Mike, is that the governments are holding back on this and they're benefiting from this poaching that's going on. So I think we're not going to get into the sentimental side of it, because it gets me hot under the collar. But going back, it's right. Answering the question with regards to concessions, on my farm, I offer 15 different species that can be hunted. In total, I offer 42 different species, and that's why I have concessions. So concessions offers where you can go hunt in a different area. My area is a very flat area. I'm close to the Botswana border. The Limpopo River flows through there. Not on my farm. Adjacent to me, the Limpopo is there. So it's nice to get to different areas. And for that hunter, he was here for, let's say, 7, 10, 15 days. He gets to see a different part of South Africa, a different part of hunting. It's all different. Different farms you go to, different styles of hunting. And I think it's very important to have concessions.
Yeah, that sounds very very business savvy to me. You're able to market to to different people with different animals, and to have access to that kind of property, that makes perfect sense to me.
And Mike, I think one of the things from the U.S. standpoint, I think from the U.S. hunter's eyes, high fence hunting is sometimes frowned upon in the U.S., right? Mm-hmm. I think that one of the most important things to point out is what Boris said. If they did not do it this way, I mean, Boris, it's almost 3,000 acres there that you have at your farm that's fenced. I mean, that's 3,000 acres. And then, he talked about all the rest of the acres. I mean, if they didn't do that, I don't think Africa would be the way it is today. It's not like the U.S. where we're doing it for, growing huge trophies, shipping them in, and then just, shooting the deer like we do. It's a genetic thing that he talked about. It's a thing where we're keeping poachers out. And let me tell you, we watched warthogs go underneath the fence. He talked about the eland and the kudu jumping the fence. They go over it. It's not like it's keeping the animals in. It's to try to deter people from getting in to poach. Right. So I just think that's important to point out, because us in the U.S., we see it differently. And I don't think it's right to have that mindset.
Yeah, I agree. And it allows you probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Boris, but you can keep tabs on the animals a little bit better when they're, so it might be easier to identify a Dagoboy, right? Like that bull that's at the end of his life, that he's no longer really kind of serving the herd. You can keep a better probably tab on that, or an eye on that, and know, okay, he's no longer with the herd, and that kind of thing.
100%, Mike. So, for example, this buffalo that I did a week ago was a really old bull, and funny enough, he was walking alone. We had spotted him when we entered the concession. It wasn't until my farm; it was until one of my concessions, and they'd phoned me up and they said, "Listen, they've got this bull. He's really nasty, and the people can't even drive. They can't walk on the farm. He's attacking everyone." So we made a call to go and not seeing really what he looked like, we went and set up a blind over there. And I'd spoken to the farm manager, and he said to me, "Look, he is a big bull," and the guides of that farm. And when we drove in that morning, we saw this bull in the thickets. And when I had a look at it, I knew it was him. You know what they're talking about? What is odd, he was walking alone. And that, when you get an old bull like that, sometimes they're alone, but sometimes they have bodyguards. They have bodyguards to protect them. In any case, we went and we sat in that hide, and naturally the chap shot it with a bow. And when we were cutting it up, he had a lot of battle scars. So he looks like he was a fighter. But when we cut him up and we gutted him, his ribs had been broken. So somewhere along the line, one of the other bulls must have hit him hard over there, and he was hurting. He was, I think he was battling to even eat. So those are the type of bulls that you need to hunt, at the end of the day, what we call Duggar boys. And they are very fierce. They are not easy bulls to hunt at the end of the day. They're really nasty. They're not scared of you. But that's exactly what we talk about. We're not going to, and I said to Chad as well, I'm not going to harvest animals on my farm that have not come at the end of their cycle. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to hunt young impalas, for example, that still can breed another 3-4 years, because you're actually damaging the ecosystem. Think about it. You're damaging the genetics that comes with it. So I'm very pickish as to what trophies get harvested. Even the guys that were now, I made a call. I made a call on the first day, believe it or not, Chad, not to pull the trigger on a very nice golden wildebeest. And I said to the guy, it is your first day. Let's just enjoy it. And I always believe take what the bush offers. You've got to take opportunities. But believe it or not, for 7 days, I never got sight of golden wildebeest again. And then you regret that, you know what I mean? And I should have taken the shots. But is that what life's all about, Mike? Is that, to go there and quickly pull the trigger? No, let's enjoy the adventure. It must be an adventure. It must be a journey. I think that's what sets me aside from a lot of outfitters over there, that I'm not going to just roll you in and roll you out. Not at all. I think there's got to be a management style. You've got to enjoy hunting. You've got to be enjoying the walking. Jad mentioned we were very close. I'll be honest with you. We were tracking game, and the next minute, and the wind was in our favor, so I don't even know what triggered it, but we heard this thunder. And I looked at my guide, and David, my tracker, and he's my right-hand man, my left-hand man. Him and I complement each other very well. And I looked at him and said, "Is that wildebeest?" We were looking for wildebeest. But then the thunder seemed to be becoming even bigger, and it was like a horrible thunder. And then I said, "It's buffalo." We had not seen him. I said, "This is buffalo." And the next minute they appeared, Chad, how far? 20, 30 yards from us.
Yeah.
They came running past us, big came running past us. They didn't know we were there. But naturally, we looked for a bit of a tree to hide behind, because if they did come for us, our lives were in danger there. There's no two ways about it. So I think that's the exciting part, Chad.
And that's what I was telling a lot of people, is that it was one of the most. I was afraid, but I was excited. Like, how many people get to experience 7 bull buffaloes running at you, Boris grabbing you by the arm and throwing you down? Be quiet, don't say anything. And we're just sitting there. I'm like, how is this going to turn out? I think Boris had the 375. I think I had a 308 or something like that. And I just, what are we going to do with 7 bulls? And I'd never been in a situation like that. You hear about situations like that. And from then on, I was a little more curious about what was around each bush as we continued on looking. But it was an experience that I'll never forget. It was a something that Boris and I and David got to have together and share that moment and bring it back to the people in the camp. And it's one of those. It's like you were nervous, scared, but you were glad it happened.
Yeah.
Chad, with something like that, it's weird that nothing really scares me. The only thing that really scares me is the black mamba. That scares me because it's something I can't see, and especially if I'm not hunting it and it happens to be there. But I had some Canadian friends over here recently, just after Chad left, and the guy brought his wife. Brody brought his wife, Amy, and she wanted to shoot a gemsbuck. So we stalked nicely. Do you know how many times, Chad, we bumped those buffaloes? We must have walked with them 7 times in that day, but literally 10 feet, 5 feet from, because we were using the wind to our best, and we were walking into them. That becomes very dangerous over there. And so that poor woman, she was a nervous wreck by the time she got to shoot a gemsbuck, because it was every time there's action. And, and naturally, it's my job, to make sure that my friends are looked after, that nothing happens to them, I think that's important. But that's always exciting.
Yes, very.
So both you and Morgan harvested animals, right, Chad?
Yes, that's correct.
So then, what do you do? Okay, you've harvested them. What's next? Like, do you?
So I think one of the biggest thing people ask is what happens to the meat, right? We cannot import, or I guess export from Africa, import here in the U.S. our wild game from South Africa, which is kind of stinks. But I mean, I guess how would you get over there really that far? But we were able to taste Morgan's kudu. Boris cooked a wonderful meal one night after she had shot it. We got to taste gemsbuck. I think the wildebeest biltong. We got Impala. We got to taste so many different things that they keep there for the guests to try. But then, Boris, why don't you fill them in on what happens to the rest of the meat, and then we can also get in taxidermy as well.
So, what I do from my side as well, Mike, is I donate to a school which is just down the road from us. I will donate 1 or 2 carcasses for them. It's a school that's we're in a very rural area. To give an example, I am literally about an hour and a half away from the nearest town. So, and it's a long drive, gravel road. So the kids in those areas go to, let's call it a boarding school. They go to a boarding school, they go there, they start on a Monday morning and they go home on a Friday. I'm talking about the locals. The locals, people that work for us, they go to those schools. So I donate, when there's hunters, I donate some carcasses to them, which they then cut up and they feed the kids that are there. I don't just do it. There's other outfitters in my area that also do it. However, I also donate meat to an area not too far from where I live as well, which houses 250 families that cannot get jobs. They're actually pretty much buggered. And they're relying on the state. The state doesn't support them. So I give carcasses over there. With that, I mentioned as well with the Canadian guys to Keith and them. So what happens, I get a letter from them. It's a non-profitable organization. And I get a letter from the stating, that thanking us for the meat and whatever. And the other meat, what I do, I process, for camp and for my staff, I process that meat. But it doesn't go to waste. That's one thing. I think a lot of non-hunters believe that the trophy hunters just shoot for the trophy and the meat just gets left in the field. It's not like that at all. There's slaughtering facilities. We work the meat. We eat the meat. A lot of us, we hardly buy beef. We do eat beef, but we enjoy eating venison food. It is healthy for us, but it really goes to good use.
And Mike, besides the monetary value that goes into the economy there in South Africa, I want to point out that just look how much that supports a local economy as well. And when you go there, you'll see how rural it is. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, for the last 45 minutes, I think, or an hour that we were on the trip, it was the red sands of Limpopo. I mean, asphalt stopped and we were gone. And I mean, it was, donkey carts and, small houses and it's different than what we think here, because I think the U.S., we a lot of times anywhere we are, we're very privileged, I think, of the country we live in and the economy, the local economies, and what they've done for people here in the States. And what Boris does and other outfitters do, and even the hunters coming to pour in the monetary value of the hunting, but also the food that it provides to locals, is a huge benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's a full circle there that goes. It's far more than just getting a trophy. There's a lot more that goes into it, and I
Most
do think
certainly.
that's an important factor. Boris, you were born in Italy, you said?
No, I was born in South Africa, so
Oh,
I
you were.
hold dual citizenship. I hold a South African passport, an Italian, a European passport as well. But no,
Yeah.
I was born in South Africa in 1969. Yes.
Okay, because I was thinking that you were. I thought maybe there was an Italian flair in your cooking. So
There definitely is. Mike, I must just tell you, my mother, I believe, we all believe our mothers are the best chefs in the world, but my mother is. You know, we were very privileged. You know, my mom always made her own Italian dishes, you know, like pasta. She'll start from the beginning making the pasta, lasagna, ravioli. So that's how I was brought up. I was brought up eating very continental style and South
Mhm.
African. Not many people in my country get to enjoy that. You must remember we're a very diverse country in South Africa. You know, you have your Afrikaans speaking whites and you have your black community, let's call it. They fall under 11 exotic languages over there. And then you have your English that came from the UK, you have your Spanish, you have your Portuguese, your Greeks. So we're a very diversified country, like yours as well, you know. And growing up in Italian home, I must be honest with you, was awesome because to eat Italian foods, I love Italian food, but I love my South African foods. I enjoy braaiing. You know what braaiing is? It's barbecuing. We enjoy braaiing over hot coals. We don't like doing our stuff on gas and all that. I think that's the easy way out. I like to feel my temperatures with the hot coals and putting a nice piece of steak on there or fillet on there.
And then,
Yeah.
and Mike, that's what we did every night. We'd go out and we'd come in and maybe have a little snack of the biltong, and we'd go out and we'd hunt jackal at night for a few hours and get
Oh,
to do
wow.
that and call them just like we coyote hunt here, right? And then
Yep.
we'd come back and the fire would already be going, so the coals would be getting hot, and we get to have a nice little nightcap there by the fire and the stars. Mike, you wouldn't believe, and I'm sure maybe you've been in some remote areas over that way, but it's 100,000 more stars than we have here, and the Milky Way every night lit up the sky. And
Yeah.
Morgan and I just taking that in with the campfire, and then Boris over there cooking. And I don't like to give him too much credit because his head might get a little big, but he is a good cook. He cooks very well, and it's incredible. The experience is
That's
incredible.
that's so when when we were talking about the Italian background, I love Italian food, and so you almost had me hooked, and then you started to lose me. Now I'm back in. So and,
No,
and
Mike.
Chad, you're right. There's just no words to describe the over there. Like there's no cultural moorings either. Like you don't here, you drive down the road, there's a McDonald's, there's a gas station, that kind of thing. And my experiences in Africa have been you at least in Dakar and in the rural areas of Senegal, you're looking at grass and mud huts still, and it's just a whole different world. And to be in that and to be able to experience that along with experiencing the hunt, and the different species like that, to me, and you're getting I hate the pun, but the more bang for your buck, right? You're getting an opportunity to hunt numerous different animals for that week long price tag.
Yeah,
So
no, you're exactly right. So Mike, we
uh,
must set you up on a hunt now with Boris, and you go enjoy it.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I think, Mike, yes, I mean, it's open. I mean, I'm going to be coming through to the US in February. I'm doing some road shows over there. I'm doing
Mhm.
the Deer Classic in Peoria, Illinois, and I'm doing the outdoor show in Louisiana. I'm looking forward to it. It's my first shows I'm going to be exhibiting at. I normally go see my friends, and we have house parties, and that's how I connect over there. But Mike, my thought on this is, how long is this going to be around for? How long are we going to have this? Are our kids going to be able to? Are the grandchildren going to be able to enjoy this? Because, I don't know if you've heard now, but you know that they want to close now hunting on giraffes.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, all farms in South Africa have giraffes. There's not a single farm that doesn't have a giraffe on.
That was the first animal we saw, Mike. Within
100%.
20 minutes of being there in the hide that evening, I look up and here comes a giraffe eating on the treetops. I mean, to get to experience that, all we get to do here in the U.S. is experience those things in a zoo from a cage that we get to see on the other side. But 30 yards from us, experiencing that, and we only saw it one time. That was it. And it was the most incredible afternoon, that first afternoon, being able to enjoy that. So
it's interesting, because I think once you've been here, you get to understand what it's all about, and you can share that information when you go back to the US. I mean, there's guys. I've got a very good friend of mine who's coming also September, Jim Gray. He's done 25 hunting safaris with me, and he carries on coming every year. He comes through. The only year he missed out was the COVID year. We couldn't get you, So he's got a wealth of experience, and when he goes back, he's always got a story, and he shares the stories, and he shares our passion, and he shares our frustrations, as to what's going on. I'll give you a good example, Mike. If our economy benefits a lot, but for South Africa, I'm talking about South Africa, forget about Namibia and the rest of the African countries, but hunting generates 2.5 billion. That's what it pumps into our economy, dollars. $2.5 billion into our economy. That's a big number. If you start breaking it down, it's roughly a hunter will spend on average about $4,000. That's just on a hunt, but it's a bit bigger than that. If you've got to take your gear, your airplane tickets, your ammunition, it's about $880 million. That's more or less what the numbers are. And I think it's bigger than that. I think there's a lot that they're losing out. This was done on a survey, and that's huge. If you take the US guys, there's 200,000 US guys who come to South Africa a year to hunt over here. It's very important, Mike. It's very important that the US carries on supporting us, because without the dollar, without the euro, Europeans, as you know, pretty much done. They can come hunt, but they can't take the trophies anymore because they stopped, especially in the UK. I think without the US, we won't be able to do what we're doing. It doesn't make sense for me. I might as well go farm cattle or start planting corn at the end of the day. And that's my concern. I have a concern that if the greenies carry on with this and the pressures that they're applying, it might not be here. It might not be here in the next 20, 30 years. So it's very important that you guys spread that message. And I think it's got to do with, it's all businesses. I believe the greenies have got a business to run. They get paid to do it, and they're going to support it. But I think they need to really look at the bigger picture as to what we are doing in South Africa. It's not just about a trophy. Like I said to you, I had a father and son. That was very special for me. I must tell you, to have a father and son team over there. I think Jay can also tell you I'm a no-nonsense guy when it comes to children. I don't take their nonsense. You can ask Chad. If you make a mistake, you pay. I'm very old school when it comes to that. It's important to have those, but I love my kids, and I love sharing my experience that I have, in what I have experienced in the last 40 years of hunting. It's 45 years of hunting. And if I can take that over and share it with them, for the newer kids on the block, I think it's important we do that, because we want to still do this in the next 50 years, man.
Yeah.
And Mike, we're going to be taking our girls the next time we go. I mean, that's just how much we enjoyed it, how we want to share that with them. Boris would be like, what do you call it? What's the opposite of a oma? What's a grandpa?
Opa.
Opa.
Normal.
So, and Lazan and Boris have become family to us, and we can't wait to share those memories and Boris's, farm with our kids.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, that to me speaks volumes about you, Boris, and the way that you do things there. So
Yeah.
So Chad and Boris, how do you? I know that I think I communicated that we're usually about an hour, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to know the taxidermy. How what does that entail, and can you bring those trophies back?
Yeah. Go ahead, Boris. You can fill in, and I
So
can tell you about
there's
my
two
experience.
ways of doing it, Mike. Naturally, we've got, I think, some of the best taxidermists in the world, purely because they have the mounts to mount your trophy. They all know how to mount a kudu and whatever. Naturally, there's some dodgy guys in our country. Certainly, the guys that where I took Chad's trophies, he was rated taxidermy of the year 2 years ago. So we can do the taxidermy here, and I think it works out more or less the same if you do the other way, which is, let's say you've got a preferred taxidermy in your area that you've been taking your trophies to, and he can do South African mounts. A lot of guys in the US can do South African mounts. So you do what we refer to a dip, ship, and pack, and off it goes. And that's basically they cure the skin and they treat it, make sure there's no parasites on there, and it basically goes to one of the ports there in the US. Normally goes out to Atlanta. And Coppersmith seems to be the preferred receiver, and then you take it to your taxidermist. So like I say, if you work out what it does cost doing it here and all of that, it's more or less the same. I think where it catches you out is the shipping. The shipping has become quite expensive. Cargo, has become expensive, even if you have to air freight it through Turkish Airlines or Delta. I see Delta. And that's the nice thing about your president. Delta the other day confirmed that they were not going to transport any trophies to the US, and your president put a stop to that and said, you guys will. So that's opened up again, which is, I'm glad they're doing that because Delta is one of the preferred airlines to South Africa and back again. So that's a two-way. So it does become an expensive thing. I always say, don't be penny wise, pound foolish. If it's a trip that you're going to do once in a lifetime, rather spend the money and you get a world-class trophy that's a memory for life. You know what I mean? And you don't have to take it back again to get, the ears falling off or something like that,
Yep. And Boris got us in touch with a great taxidermist there, Mike. And actually, we've been talking multiple times. I think the preferable way is through WhatsApp. I think people that want to do a hunt like this, or get in touch with Boris if we book a hunt. The WhatsApp seems to be such a great tool to have because we can text message, we can call, FaceTime, but the taxidermist has been great where they've sent tons of photos and work they've done and positioning, because obviously we're not there to talk about how we want things, but the communication's been awesome. So I think that's a huge point to make, is that Boris got us in touch with somebody that is going to be world class with their work and craftsmanship and also communication.
And naturally, Mike, what I do, I also drive it. For me, the hunt, when the hunt is over, when the guy receives his trophy, that's when the hunt is over. Yes, I've been paid for it. I've been paid for guiding, but effectively, I get involved with the taxidermy, even with the guys from Swift, who the dipping and all that. I get involved. I initiate the emails. I get the job cards going. I always like to be in touch. I always say to guys, you will copy me in all the emails. So although a lot of outfits say, well, my job is pretty much done, you need to deal with the taxidermy. I say, no, that's where I want to be involved. If I can assist, why not? If it's something that the guys are not familiar with the way they want the Gemsbuck to look at, I will make a turn and go to the taxidermy and take a few photos of options that are available over there if you're not too sure. So, like I say, at the end of the day, my trip finishes once you receive your trophy. I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah. That's really that instills confidence, Boris. Like in your clients, I think that really will instill that level of confidence of like, okay, he's going to take care of us from start to finish. He picked us up at the airport and he's going to make sure my trophies get back to us. So
yes, and I think, Mike, that's why I chatting to Chad and all that. I don't just believe in a lot of people, but I think there's a lot of people out there that will take chances on your business. And that's where Chad and I spoke. I spoke to Morgan as well, to make Chad my representative over there. It's very important for me to have a representative in the US. There might be times where I could be hunting and I cannot take a phone call, and that's where Chad should be able to take it. He's done the trip. He's coming back to South Africa. He knows how the system works. And it gives a first-time hunter to South Africa, we can talk to one of the US guys and not have someone that can, excuse my language, bullshit you. I don't have time for bullshit. I think none of us have time for bullshit, and there's a lot of bullshitters out there. And that's the last thing I want. My name is very important to me, and that's why it was, for me to have Chad representing my company over there. It was first prize, and I think we've got a great partnership. Just like I have a partnership with the guys in Canada now. I've got some world-class guy that's looking after my interest over there. And that's important, that you're not just dealing with some guy in South Africa. Gee whiz, what's happening with the crime in South Africa? What's happening? Crime's all over the world, let's be honest. But I think at the end of the day, Chad's the guy that he's going to be answering a lot of the questions over there. And naturally, I will be available. I always said to Chad, if we can do a video call on WhatsApp, if we can do a Teams on or Zoom, let's get the confidence of the guys that they're coming to a family-run business and it's not some corporate business, And I think that's, Chad, once again, thanks for coming on board.
Yeah, appreciate it, Boris.
So, Chad, how do if somebody hears this and is interested in wanting to talk about a hunt or talk about connecting with Boris, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah.
To start the process.
Yeah. Mike, anyone that's interested in looking into a hunt with Basso Safaris there in South Africa, I think in the U.S. here, you can contact me through Facebook, so through Chad Heflin on Facebook, or at Marshfield Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram, and I can take direct messages. From there, I'd love to chat with you a little bit, but then get on a phone call. I think it's important to be able to kind of go through things in person as much as we can, and in person I mean by chatting on the phone. And then from there, once we kind of start setting things up, the next thing I'd like to do, which I've done with a few people that prospective clients, is get some FaceTime with Boris. I think that's most important because as you can see and tell, getting to talk to Boris, it gives you that familiarity and the confidence of this hunting trip that you're starting to plan. Chad Heflin or Marshfield Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram, and then from there we'll get in touch with Boris.
Okay, and I'll put the links to those in the show notes so that folks will have those right. So,
yeah, and when people are looking at this, a lot of times they want to look at prices. There's packages that I have that Boris sends me that we can that are already put together with a price. But you can also go to bassosafaris.com and look at that, where he has all his pricing, his lodging, about him and Basso Safaris. So you can also get a lot of information there. And then we can also work on customizing things. So not just the packages, but Boris and I can work on customizing your trip, 7-day, 10-day Kruger National Park visit, and then hunting for a few days. So any of those things we can do.
Okay, cool.
So it's not just the hunting there, Chad rightfully said. I think, bird shooting, wing shooting, it's very big in South Africa. We have vast lands of agricultural lands. We have an abundance of game. It's not like Argentina where you're shooting pigeons or ducks coming out of the air, but it's certainly a challenge over here. And naturally, the other thing that's just opened up is tiger fishing in the Caprivi up in Namibia. I have a concession in Namibia to go tiger fishing. It's the chaps that were here with me now, they want to, on the next trip, they want to go 3 days to the Caprivi to do a tiger fish and combine it with the hunting. So we can do all of that. We can custom make. Like I said, I will never take people to a commercialized place. I'll go to places that I enjoy going to, that is, privately owned, and I can give the best attention, and that's really important, Mike. So yes, we can offer all of that. You want to go to Cape Town, I take you. I won't let you go with a tour operator. I will personally guide people, and that's why I don't double book, because I like to be involved.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I think that's outstanding. That's what I would want in a hunt, and with a guide, is to you want to be with the best, and you want to be with the guy who is running the show and understands it and knows it. And do you so would you ever have a client that, so maybe, Chad wants to hunt and Morgan wants to come along and just do photography? Well, you kind of addressed that already, didn't you? That you guys were kind of half hunting, but I think of like my wife is not a big hunter, but she loves to do photography. Is that an opportunity? Is there an option?
Yes, it is, Mike. So, for example, and I must bring up the chaps that we're here now. They've booked for next year. They're coming in August next year. So they're going to combine, it's fishing. So with the fishing, whilst we're out there, she's going to do photography. She loves photography. So she wasn't on the trip now, the guy's wife, but she's going to join next year. So whilst we're going to come back to South Africa and do our hunting, she's going to go with Lausanne to one of the game reserves and do photographic safaris, go photograph. And the nice thing about it in my area, like I mentioned, there's rhinos in my area. So I know my neighbors well. Want to go take nice photos of rhinos, we can do that. Nice photos of kingfishers or fish eagles, we can do all of that. I think it's important, like I said, Mike, sometimes you can't afford to bring your wife or you can't afford to bring your fiance. But that's the difference. I will make it happen for you, where I will put something together and say, you know what, it's not our price. I can help you with this. I will try and accommodate you where I can. I think a lot of outfitters don't do that. It's a price and that's a take it or leave it. And I'm saying, no, I would like the guy's wife to come with, or the guy's daughter or son to come with. And I'll accommodate you somewhere along the line. I will accommodate you that you can make it and make it worth it. And let's make it easy on your pocket at the end of the day. So yes, we can do all of those. And like I say, my family gets involved with it.
Oh, neat. Really cool. Well, thank you so much, guys, for jumping on. I know, Chad, it was an early morning for you, and Boris is probably cutting into your afternoon nap time.
It's gone past. I have to have a beer now. That's all I've got is to drink a beer or whiskey or something like that now.
Sounds like a good day to me. So. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And if you guys will just hang on for a second as we close out, so I can make sure that this is all, everything is downloaded and we're good to go. That would be great. So
thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And Boris, I look forward to connecting with Chad and perhaps investigating something in the future here with you. So
please, that would be nice.
All right. Well, thank you folks for listening, and we'll be back next week, and God bless.